Okay.
This meeting is being recorded.
Got it. All right, and I am going to turn it over to Catherine Blanco from our team and a Bethel resident who put all this together. I'm sure everybody on the call knows her already, but Catherine, take it away.
Thanks so much, Pete. I'm going to start sharing the presentation we've got here. Slide. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bethel Transit-Oriented Community Walk Audit virtual workshop. Thanks for joining us today, both those of you who made our in-person walk audit 2 weeks ago and those who are joining now to see how all that went. We're fortunate to have some elected officials with us today, State Senator Julie Kushner and First Selectman of Bethel, Matt Knickerbocker, who are going to be saying a few words, as well as the town planner and Director of Economic Development for Bethel, Beth and Janice. Thank you both as well. But before we jump into that, I want to give a quick intro about who we are at DesegregateCT, what transit-oriented communities are, and why we're doing these walk audits. So we are a coalition of pro-homes, neighbors, and nonprofits. You can see our coalition partners logos here. And we believe that better zoning laws can lead to a more equitable and sustainable Connecticut, and transit-oriented communities, also known as transit-oriented development, is a really important piece of that mission. So most of you are familiar with the concept of transit-oriented communities, but for a quick overview, transit-oriented communities are intentionally planned and designed to be mixed income and mixed use communities that are walkable and accessible. They're good for homeowners and home renters because they can help save on housing costs and transportation costs. They're good for our environment because they can help to reduce the pollution that comes from transportation emissions. And it's good for local businesses who can benefit from that additional foot traffic and traffic from our public transportation. So in Connecticut, or we're using the term transit communities to refer to those with train stations and fast track stations. So in Connecticut, we have 40 transit towns and 62 transit stations. But we aren't developing enough around those transit centers, and we're underutilizing that resource. We have an issue brief on the topic that you can access online. And among other findings, we found that 32 out of our 40 transit towns make it really hard to build multifamily homes near their stations. And 15 towns do not allow any as of right multifamily housing near any of their stations. And that makes it really hard to build the kind of transit-oriented communities many residents want to see. So instead of encouraging walkable communities around transit, we're requiring sprawl. We're requiring people to live far apart from our stations and from one another. So Massachusetts really recently took bipartisan action to address this issue, and they required communities with MBTA stations to rezone to allow 15 homes per acre near those stations. That's similar to a proposal we had last year. And we have a drawing someone from our team did up about showing what 15 homes per acre can look like. As you can see, it's not, it doesn't have to be a high rise. It can be, row homes, triplexes, duplexes, some single family homes. And a lot of communities in Connecticut already look like this or used to look like this, especially near our train stations and downtown centers. But we really wanted to get out and see what do these communities that are already, using transit-oriented development, what do they look like in practice? And that's why we were inspired by and adapted a tool from the AARP called a walk audit. It's designed to, the AARP walk audits are designed to assess pedestrian safety and comfort. And we also wanted to, do that and also add a look at housing and local businesses near those train stations. So we have a toolkit online for anyone who's interested in hosting a walk audit in their own community. And the idea is, again, to get residents, elected officials, local business owners, other stakeholders out on the ground, seeing, what the pedestrian experience is near their station, what they like, what they want to see happen in the future. And we've been hosting these walk audits throughout Connecticut, but we wanted to host one in Bethel specifically because Bethel is a great example, we think, of what a trans-oriented community can look like, as people in Bethel have, town officials in Bethel have let me know. Since 2016, there's been a Bethel master plan that has guided the town's efforts, especially in the transit area. And these efforts have been in the works before that too. So we wanted to learn about what that looks like in Bethel and show other towns who maybe are hesitant to adopt these similar practices, what a really good example of transit-oriented communities can look like. Now, I wanted to turn it over to our state senator, Julie Kushner, who was able to join us on that walk to say a few words about what that experience may have been like, but also her perspective on the importance of housing reform and transit-oriented communities throughout the state. So if you're able to speak, Senator Kushner.
Thank you, Catherine, for introducing me. And I just want to, first of all, thank the Bethel team who really were so gracious and willing to share all the information with us. And, of course, I was so impressed with Janice and Beth and their deep knowledge of how Bethel has really intentionally looked at development in the transit oriented community here. And I know Matt is here too. And so, it's in order to have a great team, you have to have a great leader. And Matt has truly been an advocate of, looking at how does Bethel really work and accommodate all the aspects of the community. And I'm so impressed. I feel like as a neighbor in Danbury, there's a lot we can learn from the Bethel experience. And so, the tour was great. And I would really encourage any, town that can do this as much as you can get out there and promote these kinds of walks. It was done in a way that really, it was informal in the sense that we had a real ample opportunity to ask questions and really get the thinking behind how Bethel had, planned these various projects and also see what was coming. And I think that was exciting too, to see the future plans for development. Personally, I think one of the things that impressed me the most was the fact that Bethel has a requirement of looking at the architectural design to make sure that the architecture really promotes the feeling of what we want a small town to look like. That's very consistent with the past and really conscious of not just creating a bunch of, concrete block housing units, but housing units that are appealing and inviting to the community. So Beth and Janice and Matt, you've done an outstanding job. And I've already been talking you up in other towns that I represent. So personally, it was incredibly informative. I learned a lot, things that I, had seen, but not really seen and understood in Bethel. And, things that I would like to see done in other communities that I represent, particularly in Danbury. So thank you so much. It was a great experience. I enjoyed it completely. I was not bored for 1 second, and it was good exercise too. So I encourage everybody to participate. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Senator Kushner. I really enjoyed, as you were saying too, just the opportunity to get out there, get outside, get some exercise, and learn a lot about my town. So thank you. And with that, I wanted to turn it over to our first selectman, Matt Knickerbocker, if you wanted to say a few words about Bethel's efforts and the history of how this community came to be.
Thank you, Catherine. Let's do a quick sound check. Everything okay? You guys can? Okay, good. I was having some trouble earlier, so I appreciate that. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you all today. And Julie, great to see you again. And thanks for joining the team on the tour. I had a conflict that day, but I'm very, very familiar with the efforts of our land use department and our planning and zoning commissions over the years that have really worked this forward. I have to say, I don't deserve much credit for this. I have had the great honor of working for the town of Bethel now in my capacity as first selectman since 2009. And I can tell you that conceptually, transit-oriented development was really already on our radar going all the way back then. Beth's predecessor had started it. Beth, when she assumed the role of town planner and moved us forward with the Bethel Forward Plan in 2014 through 2016, has done a great job. And I really have to really point to our land use department that has worked with all of our planning and zoning commissions over these years, over the last 10 years. They have been very forward thinking. They've gotten all of our elected officials, and as you know, in a town meeting form of government like ours, planning and zoning is very separate. The Board of Selectmen and the First Selectman have no official role in that. So you really have to have forward-thinking people, not only in your land use department providing leadership and guidance, but also commission members who are willing to listen and willing to expand their thinking on this. I would say that the role that I have played personally has been that of a cheerleader, if you want to use that term. And that's important because I know that through these years, I have had people come into my office really not understanding how local government works. And they've complained about affordable housing. They don't want this in their neighborhood. There's a lot of misunderstanding. So if we have any other elected officials on the line with us in our presentation this morning, I would say to all of you and to all of you who work with your local elected officials, it's important that they understand what affordable housing means and what it doesn't mean. This is a benefit to all of our communities. It's a benefit to our economic development. I know from moving here 30 years ago, right out of college, the sticker shock that I experienced personally coming from a small Midwestern town and learning how things are done in New England, and it's very, very different. Bethel's always been a leader. Bethel has always been a very affordable small town, but that still means it doesn't mean we're where we want to be or where we need to be. We still have some work to do. As good as things are here and as hard as we've worked, there's still some progress that needs to be made to make it possible to diversify our communities and to keep our young graduates here, young families who want to move into this area and take on jobs. This is an integral part of it. You know, the people who don't understand what affordable housing means, when I talk to them, I equate it directly back to the health of our economy and how intertwined they are. So I want to thank Desegregate Connecticut for your work. The whole issue of affordable housing is also intertwined with diversity in our communities, and that is something that we need to strive for as well. So thank you for the opportunity, and keep up the great work, Desegregate. You guys are doing an awesome job, and we really appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you so much, First Selectman, and thank you for speaking today as well. And with that, I'm gonna resume sharing. We put together a presentation that includes some photos from our walk audit, as well as notes about, again, what we were able to see that's already been done, and what some ideas were that either came from elected officials themselves or from some residents who were on the walk audits about what else could be done in the future or might already be in the works. So with that, I wanted to turn it over to our town planner, Beth Cadagna. Thank you again, Beth, for being our guide on this actual walk and now on our little virtual walkthrough.
Okay, so I don't know how you want to conduct this. You want to give me some, so what you're showing now is basically the map of where we started. We started at the train station, going along Durant Avenue. And basically what we did was review both sides of the street. One that showed residential development and the other showed industrial uses. And there was a good comparison between the two as far as lighting, sidewalks, and things of that nature. And when I look at what you're in your presentation, we're talking about, we did have some discussions. It's a very wide street. We can do bike lanes, road diets, things of that nature. And of course, we do want to make improvements along the heavy industrial side of the street. And that would include commercial retail on the first floor and residential housing on any upper floors. And in Bethel, what we have done is made our regulations to require 20% of any future residential along this area, that there would be a 20% affordable component.
Beth, I just want to jump in too. I think one of the interesting things for our purposes, oh, great. Thank you, Catherine. The next picture. It seemed like the commercial development on this top right, I think there was a CVS, a Chase, a PetSmart or something in there. That was an interesting part of the discussion because you had said that was, in retrospect, somewhat of a mistake of not having necessarily the mixed use component to it. So I just wanted to sort of ask, just for folks again on the recording and also just on the call, just some of the experience of kind of seeing that development and how you got to that point, as the senator mentioned too, of really thinking about it holistically, design and mixed use. Was that one of the examples that really crystallized what you wanted to do going forward?
Yes, basically, this is what you're looking at where the CVS is in Chase. That is a standard thought to development. You put in your little mini shopping center and you have your stores with parking in front. But when you're in a downtown area, after a learning experiences that we went through in 2012, 2014, it makes better sense to have the storefronts closer to the sidewalk area, allow for housing to be located above the retail component, and have the parking in the rear. So you still can maintain that streetscape that you're looking for and that walkability feel that you're looking for in any downtown area. So in 2014-16, that's when we started to develop that TOD plan, where in our future developments, everything is going to be close to the sidewalk.
Yeah, and then we also, after walking through, I sort of divided it into broadly 3 portions. So we were at the train station, we walked down Durant, and then that brings you into the slightly busier downtown area with Greenwood Avenue and everything, if you wanted to talk about that portion of the walk.
Yes, as far as our Greenwood Avenue is the mainstay of our town. Many towns aren't fortunate enough to have an established downtown area. If you notice on Greenwood Avenue in Bethel, you have a lot of mixed use. You have retail on the first floor, residential on the first and second floor, and there is allowances now for more residential to occur on your first and second floor. Again, there's an affordability requirement with any new residential units that are thought to be incorporated here. I was a little concerned when I was looking at this, as far as with the walk and such, when we were talking about benches and trash cans. You know, are we saying that we need more benches and trash cans? I didn't feel the need for that. It was interesting because that didn't jump up at me. You know, when I look down by where the clock tower is, you have a lot of benches, things like that, library across the way. So I was a little confused with that. Audio crosswalk prompts, absolutely. I think there is only one located in the immediate downtown area, and that is getting across the street to the library. But that is always improvement on our pedestrian crosswalks, things of that nature is really a big priority, just from seeing what the audit had to state in regards to that.
Yeah, and the benches and trash cans was just some feedback that we received from a business owner along that stretch. But again, I mean,
Okay.
that's why it's a sort of a conversation. I don't know if she meant specifically in that area. Maybe it was a different area of town. But you know, that's just something they'd mentioned. I don't know space wise what works in that area.
Yeah, and part of the fun of the walk audits is we do give these AARP forms that we collect from folks and just get feedback. sometimes they're anecdotal, sometimes patterns emerge. This was just feedback that we heard, so we
Yeah,
put it in. I kind of agree too. That wasn't something that came up on our radar, at least my radar, at least on Greenwood Avenue. But if it starts a conversation, if it sparks some idea, that's part of the the process for the events that we do for these.
no, it just, again, I find it interesting. There was a comment in regards to crosswalks, I believed, no, not crosswalks, sidewalks and driveways. In our current, again, downtown Bethel is a very old, established area with our driveways and such. I'm sure that there are sidewalks that do not go through driveways, but anytime we have the opportunity to do redevelopment, there will be sidewalks going through those driveways. And also the concept of a raised sidewalk going through a driveway will be studied further when we do our mobility walkability plan, which I believe I mentioned during our walk.
Yes, thank you for that additional insight. That's exciting too, that's in the works as well. I just have a couple more photos, including from the clock tower area and the housing that's currently being built next door to the library. Very exciting. And then I also, if you want to
Actually,
talk a little bit about.
Catherine, or do you mind just going back to the previous picture, just for the recording for future reference? It'd be great, Beth, if you mind just recapping again the development on the left that's right across from the municipal center. That was kind of a neat lot that they used and maximized in some interesting ways with the walkways. I just thought it'd be great for the recording if you could highlight that quickly.
The particular property that you're talking about is approximately 3 stories. It has a retail component on the first floor with, I believe, 16 units above, 4 of which are going to meet the 20% rule for affordable housing. What we did was work with the developer to create a pedestrian walkway in front of those units that will connect our Main Street, Greenwood Avenue, to School Street, where our municipal center is located. And these should be, from what I understand from the owner, he has a waiting list for the residents as far as occupancy at this point.
Yeah, it speaks to the demand for this kind of walkable community housing, and it speaks to really some foresight and getting something that's new, and what the first selectman said, it's not scary. It doesn't necessarily mean what certain people think it means at certain times, and we just wanted to highlight that because that's one of the cooler developments that we've seen on some of these.
And what I will
Thanks,
do
Kevin.
is, what I will do is when it's totally done, I'll send you a better picture of it so you can actually get the feel for the development.
That would be great. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, that was exciting to see, and to because as I'm walking in town, to get to see as those homes progress, they're looking great. All right, so we next moved on to the Barnum Square area and School Street, and if you wanted to discuss that a bit, Beth.
As far as Barnum Square and School Street, when you look at this paving here, this was done under a grant, I believe in the late 1990s. It is an ongoing request, and maybe if Matt is on the call, he can help me answer this question as far as regarding maintenance of the sidewalks. Holding businesses accountable for weed removal, I don't know if we do that. Repainting the sidewalks, these are pavers, they're not sidewalks that can be painted. And I do believe that over the years, you can see there's some repair that has occurred over there on PT Barnum Square. I don't know if Matt's still here, if he can add to that.
I think he had to drop out for another meeting,
Okay.
Unfortunately. But yeah, I think the weed removal was something I think I discussed a bit with Janice. I don't know the exact mechanism in town for it. My understanding is it's somewhat on the local businesses, but there's coordination with the town. And then the repainting was actually for the crosswalks.
Oh, I
not the
apologize. Tia's just reminding me, yes, that was a very interesting component that I feel that we should take care of immediately, as soon as possible. That was an eye opener for me as the planner.
And I just have some photos here of that area. So you can see that intersection where we discussed it's, you can see the sort of gap in the crosswalk there and, a little bit of difficulty just in terms of
Yes,
pedestrian
circulation.
safety with that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then also on the left, we do have that multifamily home that you informed us about as well, if you wanted to speak about that at all. When it was built.
Yeah, it is 8-unit component. It is part of our transit-oriented district. There is an old, excuse me 1 minute. There's an old farmhouse in front of it. So it kind of mimics that feel with the materials that are used on the exterior of the structure. Actually, there are 8 units in there. There is enough parking on site for those 8 units. And 2 of those units are affordable units.
And Beth, remind me, I forget from the day, the parking requirements, was it 1.5 or something?
It's 1.5. It's 1.5. Does not matter if it's a 1 or a 2 bedroom unit.
Yeah, so that is better than over requiring parking, which is a really big part of affordability and obviously land use. That's something that DesegregateCT really pushes for. There's always a balance for car-centric design that we have, but even that number, still gives options for the developers to build. But the fact is, it's not overbuilding the parking. And I'm sure a lot of these folks will, be empty nesters going down to 1 car or those kinds of things too, where that meets the reality that towns can't require developers to overbuild parking, which creates and sustains a serious number of issues. So we want to highlight that too. We probably would want less, but this makes sense for Bethel, and that's we highlight that respectability difference as well.
Yeah, I think you have to understand that when you're dealing with smaller towns, like Bethel, there's an education component that needs to be had. We are not a city. We do not want to be a city, but at the same time, with everything that goes on economically with cars and cost associated with that, it's more economical and more to a town's advantage to have residences around your downtown area, because that is what keeps your downtown vibrant. Parking is always an issue, but it is an education to people that, we don't all need to have cars. We don't need to have 2 cars. We can work with 1 car because I can walk to the store. I can walk to the pharmacy. I can get my mail, things of that nature. But it's a big educational component.
Yeah, and this part of the walk too, you really highlighted that. And Janice, I'm sure you can jump in on this as well. I think it came up later, but having folks that live within walking distance of the downtown sustains those businesses. And it sounded like during COVID, which was obviously devastating to a number of small businesses, restaurants, and other issues, that Bethel seemed to weather the storm pretty well. And I think this is to your point, Beth, that there are folks that are within walking distance already that can sustain those businesses. And obviously the town did a lot to support businesses as well. But that is an education issue. Certainly one of our priorities at DesegregateCT is, to elevate the imagination of folks. It's not, parking is always going to be an issue, and there's, best practices and backs and forths, but getting more homes within walking distance as opposed to parking spaces generates that kind of activity that is sustaining for multiple types of uses, multiple levels of income and age differences. And that was something that we thought, again, was really the forward thinking that Bethel has gone through. You recognize that. So to the extent that we can help on the education side and Bethel and other communities, that's certainly our job that we take very seriously.
Yeah, and Pete and Catherine, part of that mobility study we're doing is also going to look at parking and what we currently have accessible. And if there's a need for future parking, what would that be and what would that look like? So Bethel. Oh, I think we all have that today.
Mm,
I'm gonna drink some water, but but part of that is part of the plan. Oh, I will be back. Give me a sec.
Quite all right.
So as I was saying, part of that follow-up to the Bethel Ford plan and what the recommendation was doing this mobility and parking study. So this is kind of an add-on to that original plan that we did in 2016. Oh, there must be something in the air here.
Well, and then I also wanted to take us virtually to Depot Place, where the old station, I believe it was called Depot Place, the road, but where that, former train station, now Broken Symmetry Brewery is, and also that former lumber mill that's going to be developed. So if you wanted to, and I know we also had some discussion about potentially adding a crosswalk there. I don't know if you want to talk about any of that.
again, that was
the
another.
next one.
Yeah, again, that was a great opportunity for me to actually experience crosswalk issues on Depot Place, one of our hot corners in town. The old train station, we were so blessed to, when our TOD kicked off, that a brewery went in there. And it's been so successful. The parking lot associated with the brewery is a municipal parking lot, so anybody can park there, but the brewery still does great. Even with limited parking in that particular lot. The lumber mill is undergoing and changing over into apartments. It's going to be 14 units. They will have 20% affordability. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but again, there's always a component of anything in the downtown area. If you're going to build anything over 5 units, or you're going to, whether it be 6 or whatever, 7, there will be a component that has affordability to it. And there's the old mill.
Yeah,
Yes,
this was for folks that weren't at the walk. A lot of the DesegregateCT team was really excited about this building. We're, adaptive reuse, particularly with Connecticut's industrial history, near the train stations and the tracks themselves. There's just a lot of this kind of, built environment buildings, and it's just a neat thing to see that going to be, redeveloped into housing. But yeah, and it was interesting too. I forget Broken Symmetry's, was it Chris? Who was okay? I thought
Yeah,
it was
Chris. Yep.
Chris.
Yeah, it was amazing having some local business leaders participating in it. But it was a really interesting perspective because that lot being municipal and sort of open, he was saying, there were concerns that on peak Saturday nights there would be enough parking and you'd lose business, and that hasn't really panned out. That there just is, enough foot traffic and other uses in town that hasn't been quite the issue, which was great to hear. I mean, again, I think in practice, and hopefully the mobility study will codify this thinking, but the parking works itself out. I mean, you need it. There's got to be smart places to put it to support businesses and folks visiting town. But we can get what we want from our land without having to put that extra space into parking lots. And that was a really great example of it. And obviously just such a cool building and great preservation and partnership with the state to get some funding, I think, for that awning on the old platform. So just a really cool, reimagining of some legacy infrastructure.
Correct. Absolutely. And like I think it was Tia that pointed out, the crossing over there, it was very interesting because it is a high foot traffic area with the restaurants so close, this and Edison, and getting over to the bookstores and things like that. But it was a very big eye opener that we do need to make some improvements here.
Yeah, I found that actually helpful as well. That's, a crossing I make with my family almost every weekend, and that would be wonderful getting a crosswalk in there. So moving on to just the third portion. This is actually an area that we weren't able to get to during the walk itself. We were able to get down to like notch 8, which is pretty close for context to that old train station, and look down that way. But afterwards, Marcus and I from the team did extend the walk a little bit since we'd run out of time and took some photos of that. So we took photos of the complex there, the Grand, as well as the neighborhoods where you can just see a lot of duplexes and a couple of ADUs. And so I don't know if you wanted to talk about maybe that neighborhood, Beth, and then also Janice, at the beginning of the walk audit and at the end, we talked about the pedestrian bridge that Bethel would love to build to connect this area with the train station itself. So if either of you would like to take the lead on this section, I have some more photos. First of the neighborhood, and then next I have photos of the station and where that potential bridge might be.
Okay,
Okay.
you want to talk about this development? Yeah.
Sure. So as far as this particular area of town, it's one of the most historical, with the old Victorian homes and barns in the back and things of that nature. And it really works well to start working on conversions of the barns and things like that. Hold on one second. I have to sign a map. Hold on. I'm signing here. Yes. Where's green?
Yeah, we
I
were, just timing wise, unfortunately couldn't make it. So I'm actually seeing some of these pictures for the first time too. And we were excited. I was really excited with what you were talking about on the tour, particularly in the first picture here, the ADUs. They're just, such great architecture and blend into that, but just wanted to jump in there.
Okay, I'm sorry. The important thing, and I'm sorry to be critical, but the middle picture really doesn't do it justice, is the layout that you do associated with the street that you're located on. We're trying to make it very important to maintain the architecture of the neighborhood that you're located. So therefore, this is more in the commercial area. It's showing the rear of an apartment complex, but if you really saw it from the Grand Street area, you would see the flow from the old Victorian homes to the complex itself. The use of exterior, hardy board, accents, things of that nature are very important in order to coexist with the other homes. The little ADU that you see on the left is really part of an old, the home there, I believe, is from the 1900s. And basically what they are conversions of old barns into a residential dwelling unit. It's a very simple conversion, and it is an allowable use in our TOD zone without having to go through extreme measures and to get a permit. You don't have to go to land use commissions. All you have to do is go work with the department and our architect in order to maintain the quality that we're looking for our properties.
Yeah, we love to see it.
Yeah, and for my part, that's I'll chalk that middle picture up to my limited photography
I'm
skills.
sorry to be critical, but
No, it's very fair. I do have some more though, I think, of the other side and angle a little better. So I think I have a plan at some point to compile all of those and make those, I think add them to add a sort of gallery to our website. But it was a nice.
Well, what this photo shows though is that, so in the front is Grand Street and this is on the opposite side of the track. So it speaks to having to be able to have that connection to transit, because if it's a transit oriented district, you need access to transit. So what they currently don't have is easy access to that transit. So what we're proposing is to create a pedestrian overhead bridge that would allow that side of our downtown direct access to the train. And so that's what this is. This is actually the train station, which is on the other side of the tracks. But if you looked over, that's where you would see the Grand that we're talking about and some other industrial properties that are primed for redevelopment into mixed use. And that pedestrian overhead pass would definitely help with the development at that area, knowing that there is direct access to it. And obviously having, improved service to our trains would also help, but that's a different that's a different animal. But having better service in Bethel would definitely help with the redevelopment around that area as well. So we actually worked with a local college to put together some preliminary designs, conceptual designs for that overhead pass. And we've also, they worked with DOT directly to just kind of get some direction in terms of what DOT would like to see over there. There are some, we've applied originally for a grant to do a plan for that area. And we've applied for grants to further with the design of that area, which we didn't get. There are some opportunities now for grant funding for that. Just resources on our side are a little tight. So we're kind of looking around to figure out how we can apply for these grants for that overhead pass, which is estimated to be about $7 million.
Yeah, and thanks, Janice, for bringing some of that up. For some of the folks that were on the tour that had to peel off at the end, we had a great discussion on the platform about this particular issue. That the sort of interesting period that we're at, both with state money and frankly with bid money from the federal side, there are sort of shovel-ready opportunities to do some projects like this, but there still really are not a lot of resources at the local level for small departments to be able to leverage that. So that seemed to be something, particularly for DesegregateCT, of where potentially we can provide value in our conversations with state agencies. And OPM just had another grant, I think even the week of that of our walk audit, really trying to highlight specific transit-oriented development, shovel-ready stuff, which of course we think this pedestrian bridge really falls into that. And what I think we would love to see, and maybe if the senator's still on, we can work on this too, is how can we coordinate state agencies that have frankly limited capacity in some cases, retirements as well, but try to get a state level view of Bethel doing the work, putting these plans together, having these zoning regulations already done, having construction already happening, planning out this pedestrian bridge. This really should, I think, be a priority for the state to fund. And the fact that that's kind of still really on a small department to be able to go out and try to do that themselves, I think is a missed opportunity. So that's something that we're talking about internally based on this walk audit of our, and I'm on one of those working groups for the commission that got approved last year. How can we leverage the existing resources and try to get these things that it's not 169 towns and cities, competing against each other or just not having the capacity to do this kind of work. So we thank you for, our experience on this walk audit, for giving us something to think about, and, where we can try to do some work at the state level to really, add some value and add some capacity to a project that just is such a no-brainer, from our perspective, and certainly from your perspective, I'm sure. So hopefully we can get that done.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. And, we're trying to look for resources, but with all of the funding and the grants that are currently available, even finding somebody, a grant writer, is really super difficult at this point. So that's kind of where we are. We really want to be able to look at our projects and match up grant funding opportunities. But even going through that exercise is a little tedious at this point, and forget about writing the grants after that. So if there's any resources that are available to us, we would really, really appreciate that.
We definitely appreciate it. But and in regards to funding and things of that nature, it's so astounding because your cities are always the first to get the components needed with grants and money from the state. And here you have a small town that has done everything to be very progressive in our thinking, and it's been extremely difficult to make those connections on the state level with DOT. And sometimes, Janice, I think I can speak for both of us. At one point, we had a meeting with the commissioner at the time, and there was like no response except no, it's not going to work. And along those same lines, dealing with affordable housing and things of that nature, we have had the commissioner of housing come down and do a meet and greet with our residents. State Rep Rahab Ellie Brennan made those arrangements. It was very productive, very helpful in helping our residents understand affordable housing. But it's just it can be very discouraging sometimes when you are very forward and very forward thinking and ahead of the game, and you're still behind, and you're not recognized for the hard work and the strides that you have made. Towns are always criticized first, but there is no incentive or reward to continue on, except, and the only reason we do it is because we want Bethel to be the way it is. We want Bethel to be affordable. People will argue with me on that. We want the diversity in housing opportunities for people, you know, and I that's where there is a disconnect with the state of Connecticut.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that the perspective. And as for folks again on the recording or in the meeting, we've done about a half dozen of these walk audits, just about every transit line in this state. And the first wave we've done, includes towns like Bethel that have done the work so far proactively, and to sort of highlight what we call the all of the above approach. We need local action, forward thinking. We need state level action, coordinating resources. And I think increasingly we need federal resources, particularly on the back end for infrastructure costs. And fact is, a lot of that's available. So now we got to put those pieces together. And it is an education piece, as you said, Beth. And in defense of DOT, they've come to some of our walk audits already. I think there are, some folks there that are certainly interested in figuring out how to leverage some of this stuff. I think, we're always reaching out to the governor, who generally says the right things about transportation and also housing, not quite together as much as we'd like, but we're certainly trying to get the state to really reward towns that are doing this kind of work, and to make them easier for smart things to get done, and shovels into the ground. And it's early days in some of these things, but I can certainly say, DesegregateCT, we hear you that this is something that needs to get done and addressed at the state level. And we have Senator Kushner on here. We've got some great allies that get that too. So I think if we're all working together, if we're all coming through the next legislative session, trying to encourage towns that aren't doing some of these steps to do so, but also to give the needed resources to get the projects done for towns that are doing that, seems like a pretty important priority for the state. So hopefully we can, all think about ways to work together in the legislative session and coordinate some of this stuff too. And I'll just say, for folks as well, the day before this, we had a walk audit in Darien, and it was an example of Representative Jim Himes was able to attend, which was great. We put a letter together to him and to the other federal delegates in the House and the Senate for Connecticut to champion what some of the federal funding available from the BID infrastructure bill. The Biden administration has announced some carrots effectively for local zoning reforms like transit-oriented communities to plug in for shovel-ready projects and infrastructure, those kinds of things. So we know there's money available, but as Janice and Beth have said, it's still frankly incumbent upon the towns themselves to be able to do that. And that's not always practical or fair. So to the extent that we can get our electeds who at each level of government are thinking forwardly, we can start getting them in thinking together of how to streamline some of these resources. So that's all in the works, and we would love all your help on that process as we continue that work.
Thank you, Peter.
Let me just jump in and say that, our DOT commissioner used to be the conductor on that Danbury line. So
really, I didn't know that.
Yes, he was. He told me that when he was going through confirmation. So maybe we can appeal to him to come back to the territory. But I am happy to work with that. I think we should do it probably in the fall, prior to the session, so that we can try and sort of set the seeds. And then obviously we also have Commissioner Bowden is working with the infrastructure dollars. So, it'd be important to touch base with him as well. So I'm happy to help with that. And And I would imagine Johanna Hayes would be another good resource for us. So we can follow up on that and see if we can coordinate that. I am still, until the end of the year, in the capacity of representing Bethel, so happy to help.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Senator. Yeah, and I think Catherine mentioned this too. I don't think we have it scheduled yet, but we're hoping to do a walk audit in Waterbury with the Congresswoman as well. We think, we've got some really great people at all levels of government that care about this, and the minutia of government can still make that hard to get things done, as we know. But I do think as our coalition plans the next sort of strategy for the legislative session, this is something we flagged. So maybe we'll have some planning sessions, Senator Kushner, about that, and get some feedback from Janice and Beth of what would a really smart plan look like to leverage some of these opportunities and funding. We've got this roadmap of funding available for the next few years, so the urgency to do it right, I think, is hopefully there, and we look forward to some of those conversations. So we'll definitely follow up about that.
So it's nice to have an opportunity, both in person and virtually, to get people from like different levels of the at the state doing this work together. So thank you all for that. And we did have a section on driver behavior. I think we did mostly cover that though. In terms of some speeding on Durant Avenue, and then a little bit of some difficulty with the intersection at Barnum. So I wanted to leave a couple of minutes for questions or comments. Anyone, particularly who hasn't spoken today, have anything they wanted to add. And also, if anyone who has spoken has some final words. But Tia?
Thank you so much for this. I was unfortunately, I could have made the original date, but I couldn't make the second date. And I'm here in a capacity holding two hats. One as the town resident here in Bethel, but I'm also the AARP state president for Connecticut and do a lot of work in the livability area. So this is obviously a heart work as well as hard work for me. One question that I have is, have we tapped into any of the university student programs for planning, urban planning and that kind of thing, to use them as a resource for putting together programs, developments, grant writing, that kind of thing? Is that a natural venue for us to be able to use? Because I know we use it with AARP for different kinds of programming work that we do. And I'm just wondering whether or not that resource, especially with WestCon being right here, I believe they have an urban planning, if not a certificate program, a master's program. And that might be, I don't know what work y'all may have been doing for that. So I just want to say thank you so much for everybody who participated, and I hope to be there and supporting as we go forward, because I love Bethel and I think it's a great place to live, and I'm all about making it that much better. Thank you.
In regards to Tia, it was a great thought as far as approaching the local colleges for grant writing, things of that nature. I think it's an excellent idea. We have used UConn in the past, really for our engineering purposes. And at this point in Bethel, that is really the main focus right now. Is we have the plan, we know the ideas, we know what we want to accomplish. How do we get there? We need help with our grant writing and with our engineering aspects associated with it, so we can approach the state for these grants and funding that is out there. Unfortunately, Janice, I'll speak for both of us, it's very, very limited staff for us to be able to go online and start working and filling out 40, 30, 40 pages worth of grants, or actually writing them ourselves. But I think what your idea with WestCon on the grant writing is a great idea. And I will look into it, definitely.
And if you need some help, please reach out to me and I'll use whatever resources I have, because I know we've tapped into them for a couple of different things.
Right.
And CCSU also has a great program, and we have some connections with them. So please reach out to me and I'll do whatever I can to help. I can't guarantee I can do a whole lot, but I do have some time. So please
Thank
tap
you very much. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll reach out to you today.
Thank you, Janice.
That's wonderful. And thank you to your, organization again for sort of being the inspiration for these walk audits in general. The AARP toolkit was really, really, foundational for us being able to do these and add that sort of housing and transportation focus. And yeah, do you want to add something back there? So you're muted.
Yeah,
Well,
I'll just add too. I
Mhm.
mean, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, AARP has been just a great ally, and obviously just constituency based, having more options for seniors to downsize and age in place and have more mobility. So we've really appreciated AARP being a partner and coalition member for us. And I'll be honest, it's a huge help. I mean, as this first selectman said, sometimes these conversations can get really discouraging for folks, and people have a concept of what affordable housing means or who it's for. And as much as we all want that not to be the case, it is. So having really centering the fact that this is existing residents in towns that need more housing options to stay in town, whether it's the elderly, young folks, as we've talked about already. But it's been a huge help for us educating folks of what this looks like. And it sounds like that effort's really succeeded in Bethel, having these conversations at all levels of government, at all levels of, folks in town and stakeholders. So that's the model. It just takes time and it's hard, but, we're putting the pieces together, and we really appreciate that work from you guys on our coalition. I know we're working on some stuff coming up, I think in September, on some stuff too. So we'll certainly keep everybody on this Bethel meeting and watching the recording aware of that work as well. The conversation continues for sure.
And I
That's
also
great.
just wanted to, sorry, go ahead, Janice.
That's okay. That's great. And any information you have regarding affordable housing and kind of the benefits of everything we've talked about, if you could share it with us as well, because as you said, it's always education. We're trying to educate at the same time, but don't necessarily always have the resources to put it all together. So if there's any of that information, we would appreciate that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I can send along some, we've compiled some research on that, so I can send that along. And
That would be great.
Yeah, it's been helpful for us to be able to point people toward that. And I know we have just a minute left. I did want to highlight Demetrius's comment about wanting to see some sort of connection between Danbury and Bethel. I remember hearing in the news something about a potential bike path. I don't know if maybe I'm getting that wrong, or maybe it was connecting two different towns, but I don't know if is anything like that being considered in the area.
I believe that what you might have been referencing, or you might have seen in the papers, that there is a possibility of some kind of big bike trail through the Terre Haute property leading into, is it the Ives Trail? I forget the name all the time, but leading up into the Ives Trail.
Yeah, it's called the Terre Haute Trails proposal. I just happen to have it right here. And it's through Fairfield County chapter of NEMBA. So they've got a little presentation about what that would be and what it would look like. But the proposals for it to go be Bethel and Danbury. But if anybody needs that information, I think I have it electronically. I'd be happy to send that out.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think that was a great comment too, Demetrius. That's something, I would definitely appreciate, because I walk a lot of the places that I go. So it'd be nice if that could be extended a bit, and bike. Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone. I guess I'll stop the presentation here. So much for coming out today, especially our elected officials in town planners who spoke today. And thanks, of course, for coming out to the walk audit in person. I learned a lot. It sounds like some of you all did as well. So I'm really grateful we have that opportunity to get out on the ground. And I hope this can serve as a resource for other towns too, who are looking to do something similar. And Pete, did you want to say any sort of wrap up?
Yeah, I just want to first thank everybody for both participating in the walk and the workshop. As Catherine said, this has just been really educational for us. We want to highlight this all of the above approach across the state. And we've been thrilled to see how much progress around transit-oriented communities is already happening with some forward-thinking towns like Bethel. And to the extent that we can help with our state level partners and electeds to make that process go smoothly, consider ourselves in on that. And just, we want to do a couple of additional walk audits this summer. I mentioned the one potentially in Waterbury with Rep. Hayes. We're in the works now. We have a events page on the website that will be doing some more of these. And just a couple of quick things I want to flag too. Catherine mentioned this. We're going to do kind of a first wave report of towns doing these kinds of forward-thinking TOC proposals. So we'll hopefully have that by the fall as we're putting together our state legislation for the next year. So we will certainly want to send that to everyone at Bethel and across the state. We've also offered this before. It might be fun, whether it's the next Planning and Zoning Commission or the next Town Council or wherever, Catherine or one of us from the team can come and do kind of a debrief on the workshop and the walk audit to give everyone in town an update on this and see again what some of these next steps and action items to keep this momentum going. So we can certainly follow up, Beth, about that. And then finally, I just want to say thank you again to Catherine, Bethel residents and champion Desegregate fellow. She's off to law school at Georgetown in the fall. So we're very thrilled for her. And just want to say thanks again for putting this event together and all the great work that you do and will do. And good luck at law school. And hopefully we'll have you working with us at some point again. But Godspeed to that, and keep up all the good work.
Good luck,
Thank you so
Catherine.
much.
Yeah, good luck,
Thank you.
Catherine. And thank you all for putting this together. Having these conversations and connecting people is so important. So we really do appreciate it.
It's all about education. It's all about understanding and living and enjoying our towns.
Yeah, and these were a lot of fun. I mean, it was a beautiful day, and
was.
we get to see a lot of great stuff. So this is fun work. It's not always fun what we do, for sure.
No,
but
not at all. Not at all. This
this
is
was
the
a
fun
fun
part.
one. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you so
Well,
much,
thank you all.
everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
Well,